So we've got to take students back and say, what actually is freedom? What actually is love? Why does God give us certain commandments? Then we can start to talk about what those commandments are and practical ideas to live it out.
I know in your book you kind of summarize the Western sexual ethic and how that has influenced particularly American Christianity. Talk about that a little bit. What is that modern Western sexual ethic, and how has the church been sort of influenced and maybe even a little bit infiltrated by that?
So let me give an example. And this is one of the early examples I use in the book. I was speaking to a group of Christian high school students, and I went to the board and I wrote, "Who is truly free?" I said, "Describe for me the person who's truly free." And what I meant by that is not politically free, but what does it mean to be a person who's free? And the students talked about themselves amongst themselves, came back to me, and they said, the free person is someone who can do whatever they want without restraint. I said, okay, paint a picture of what that looks like. And they talked amongst themselves. They came back and they said, well, I guess it'd be a person alone on an island where nobody could prevent them from doing anything they want. They'd be totally free. I said, okay, now if we add God to this picture, does it change anything about how we understand freedom? And they talked amongst themselves, came back, and one student said, well, if God exists, now freedom is doing whatever you want without restraint, but now there's consequences. Now just think about that. In their minds, all God adds to the matrix of what it means to be free is consequences, maybe judgment in the next life and guilt in this life. Can we see why that would not be a compelling ethic or compelling sexual ethic for young people? So to cut to the chase, over the hour with these students, I helped them see that there's freedom from, which they understood lacking restraint, but there's also freedom for. Like if I have a smartphone, I have to understand what it was made for, use it accordingly, and then it's free. It doesn't make waffles. It's not a weapon. It's not a doorstop. Well, interestingly, the Bible starts with, in the beginning, God created. God is a creator. So we have been made for something. The Bible says there's a purpose for language, a purpose for nations, a purpose for marriage, a purpose for families, and there's a purpose for sex. So we are only free when we understand what we're made for and live accordingly to God's design. That's at the heart of biblical freedom. So I said to these students, I said, according to the Bible, we've been made to be in a relationship with God and relationship with other people. I said, you agree? They said, yes. I said, that means the least free person is somebody who's alone on an island without another person. And it was like the lights went on, they didn't even see it. So when we start reading Bible verses or start talking about commands for sexuality or analyze songs, underneath this is an entirely different secular worldview about freedom, what it means to be human, the nature of relationships underlying this entire discussion. So the whole first third of the book is trying to strip away these faulty cultural ideas that young people have about the definition of love. So love is just doing whatever feels right to you, and you have to affirm however I feel about myself and however I define myself. If not, you're not loving.
Right.
So we've got to take students back and say, what actually is freedom? What actually is love? Why does God give us certain commandments? Then we can start to talk about what those commandments are and practical ideas to live it out. But in the church, we often just jump to those commandments. We tell kids how to live out sexual purity, where deep within their hearts, they actually have embraced a non-biblical view of sexuality and relationships.